Hi Libra, I'm EllaAradia and welcome to your August 2026 Psychic Tarot reading. This reading is for my Libra air signs, where we'll be exploring the overall energies and themes for the month ahead, as well as taking a deeper dive into how these might be playing out for you in your life. This is a general reading, so it's not going to resonate for all of you, but what I do find is there's always a shared theme that runs through the collective of all of you Libra signs. So it may show up in different areas of your life in slightly different ways, but the theme is always the same. So take what feels aligned to you and just leave the rest. And before we jump in, a big thank you to all of you who are supporting my channel by liking and subscribing. So if you enjoyed this reading and you haven't already done that, please do. It helps the channel out a lot. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, and then you can get notified when the next videos are up. So Libra, let's jump in. So I always like to have a little tune in before I start pulling any cards. I'm a psychic reader, so I always like to see what the universe shows me. I feel many of you have, reached a point in your lives where it's time for change, and that changes in terms of soul lessons. I feel like you are wrapping up lessons around, self-worth and value, because it feels like there is a big invitation here to really start moving in a different way. What I see in your past is a lot of disappointment in relationships. For many of you, a pattern of betrayal, third-party energies. Now, sometimes that can be a person, or that can actually be, someone's career or a family member or something like that. But the feeling that I'm getting, each time, like however that plays out for you, is a sense of not feeling acknowledged and honored, not feeling chosen. And there's a big invitation, I feel, to really wrap up those lessons of, self-worth, self-value, and to really start choosing yourself by putting healthy boundaries in place. Like, this is your moment. I feel like this is like a repeated pattern. Like I said at the beginning, it can show up in different areas of your life in slightly different ways. Some of you, this might relate to, a job that you're not really feeling appreciated in. You're not being acknowledged for the work that you've been putting in. And ultimately, your happiness is the cost here, and your energy, because I'm feeling for many of you, there's like a kind of feeling drained by this at this point. So there's some kind of transition that you're in right now. What lies in your overall energies is the Six of Cups. This is a strong energy of nostalgia, looking back on the past. Usually it's a moment where we reconnect to kind of good times, good memories, good experiences of the past. Sometimes this can represent someone returning from the past, somebody coming back around again. So very often in a love reading, it can represent an ex returning. But a strong energy of, revisiting the past, nostalgia. What lies in your recent past is the Two of Wands, a crossroads, a choice that needed to be made. Your current energies is the Ten of Pentacles. Let's just get your feelings towards this. I'm feeling two different energies here. Your feelings is the Hanged Man. I just want to pull the rest of the cards. Just what I thought. In the challenge is the Lovers. This might be a choice between two different people. And to me, on the one hand, it feels like, for some of you, there is an ex returning. Six of Cups, it's all about, revisiting the past, someone returning from the past. And with the Lovers there in the challenge, that usually represents a choice. This is a card that used to be known as the choice. So sometimes it can be a choice between two people, a relationship choice, or a choice that affects a relationship. And when I see that in the challenge, you know, this might be something that you are still kind of in at the moment. Because what you're really wanting, I feel, is this Ten of Pentacles, you know, somebody to build for the long term with. You know, this is someone who is ready to, you know, make that commitment, you know, building a life together, building something together, you know, life partner energy. And, you know, that might involve perhaps family, home, stability. The Ten of Pentacles is often about, you know, working towards creating, you know, a financially secure life, a stable life, security, with a view to leaving a legacy. So to me, it can also be a card of family. And, you know, really seeing that long-term future with someone. Because I feel like there's two energies here. I feel like you've got someone that is returning from the past, and I feel like there's a new person who is, I feel, much more related to this Ten of Pentacles, someone who is ready for that long-term commitment. The hidden influence, the Knight of Swords. And I instantly feel a link between these two cards. This card of nostalgia, revisiting the past, an ex returning, and the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords is a very fast-moving energy. And in a love reading, it often represents somebody coming into your life very quickly, or leaving your life very quickly, but usually leaving a kind of wake of destruction behind them. You know, it can be a very, very destructive energy. And I feel like there's a little bit of a challenge, because whoever this is in your past, I do feel like this was a significant person, and definitely somebody that you gave your heart to, you fell in love with, you saw a future with this person. But I feel like there has been some kind of betrayal, some disappointment. For some of you, a third-party energy there, which may have been, you know, a romantic one. It may also be, like I said, a family member, a close friend, you know, somebody that has kind of influenced the connection in quite a destructive way. So I feel like this also can, you know, represent the situation with this person in the past as well. Some kind of third-party energy that came in and really caused things to fall apart. But I feel like sometimes these things are meant to fall apart, because I see somebody new for you. But it feels like there's still some love and some feelings for this person, and that can be the difficult thing to let go of. I feel like this person broke your heart, broke your trust, Libra, and sometimes that can make it difficult to trust a new person. You know, are they really being real? Is this too good to be true? Can I really trust this person? Is it really safe to open up my heart to this person? What's coming in for you is the Seven of Pentacles, a moment of a pause. This usually represents a period of time where there is a need to just take a step back here. That's why the Hanged Man is there. You're being asked to take a pause. Sometimes when, you know, we're faced with a very challenging decision, it's interesting when I feel into this, because you have this person from your past, and it may not be that this person has kind of stepped forward for all of you, but it might just be that your energies are still very much present with this person in the past. And the universe has brought somebody new in for you, and somebody who I feel is offering a healthy love. That's what's on the table with this new person. And it's a question of you being able to embrace that. So to embrace that, it may involve letting go of a few things, letting go of an old version of yourself that's perhaps settled for less in some way. Because, you know, cheating, for those of you that it does relate to betrayal, it doesn't come out of nowhere. Usually there's issues going on. And, you know, this may be someone that you've kind of let a few things slide in the hopes of them changing because you saw that potential. And, you know, it just feels like, you know, that is what you wanted so much that you perhaps stayed in it longer than you should to really try and make it work. Rather than, you know, dealing with the things that you were seeing or what your intuition was telling you there. Because I feel like, you know, if you were to really go back into the past with this person, and I think if you were really honest, you know, for most people, not everybody, of course, but most people I feel, you know, have a sense of, you know, something kind of happening here that I'm not really liking, but, you know, I really want it to work. And so I'm going to just kind of put that to one side, you know, in the hopes of change. And of course, you know, your heart went in there with this person. I feel like they're still holding a little fragment of your heart as well. And it may be to, you know, do a meditation to really bring that essence of your heart back to you. And just put that with the intention that it's cleansed and healed before you bring it back to yourself. You know, because nothing is ever really taken from us. It's something that we give. And it may have been, I feel, a very challenging breakup where sometimes we can have this fragmentation that happens where little parts of our energy become fragmented. It's a way of kind of coping with something. So you may need to do a little bit of soul retrieval and, you know, bring any parts of your essence, particularly your heart essence, that's still with this person in the past. But it's going to involve seeing things as they really are, wrapping up, like I said at the beginning, these lessons of really knowing your worth and your value, putting those strong boundaries in place, and just remembering that, you know, when something breaks down like that, it breaks down for a reason. So take some time out. You know, the Seven of Pentacles is all about reflection. It's a card of a reset sometimes, where you really look at what you have and, you know, really taking a look at this situation. Because it's like you've got this person in the past where there's still some feelings. You've got this new person coming in, you know, or they're about to come in for you. It may not have happened for some of you just yet, but it's definitely in your timeline. But embracing, you know, this new beginning is going to involve taking a little bit of a leap of faith, not one that's foolish. You know, trust has to be earned. But it's still going to involve, I feel, opening up in some way and being a little bit more vulnerable and feeling safe enough to kind of be seen. So the Hanged Man is all about looking at the situation that's going on, an external situation, rather than, you know, going on an inner journey. This is something that's happening externally from you. And it's about seeing things through a different perspective, getting a fresh view on things. And I would be looking more at, you know, what that connection in the past was really illuminating to you. And really looking at things in a very honest, truthful way. Tuning into this new beginning You know, because there's a lot of excitement about it, but there's also fear that I feel. And like I was saying, you know, when things break down, they break down for a reason. And, you know, this Knight of Swords, you know, just be careful, you know, if you do allow yourself to reconnect with this person from the past, make sure, you know, if you do decide to move forwards with them, make sure that you have both really grown and learnt enough in order to be able to move forwards in a healthy way here. That's where my worry is. You know, I'm just feeling like, you know, how much have they really grown? Are you going to have a repeat of what has gone before? And taking a deeper look at, you know, the Lovers here, a choice to be made. You know, what is holding you back from embracing this new beginning? You know, is there a valid reason, or is it actually just a fear or an insecurity that you need to work through here? Because I feel a very, very different energy around who is coming in for you or who has recently come in for you and this person from your past. And it is the moment to really start looking after your needs, I feel, and not clinging to something which broke down for a reason, let's say. In your advice from the universe, we have the Three of Swords. It might be that letting go of this ex or this past partner may bring up some challenging, painful emotions. But sometimes, you know, there's that saying, you know, we can love someone, but they're not always the right person for us, you know, in terms of, let's say, life partners. You know, we can love someone, but it doesn't mean we should be with that person, especially if, you know, you haven't been treated fairly by this person. You haven't been treated with love and respect. You know, it feels like maybe they don't quite have that emotional maturity that a kind of, you know, a long-term committed relationship really takes. And it might be just to, you know, find the courage here to really face any fears or insecurities. And just remember, you know, this is a card of separation, emotional sadness, heartbreak. But just remember that, you know, within this card, you know, the wounds from the swords in the heart are really where the light gets in. You know, Three of Swords is a very, very powerful teacher. And it's a very transformative energy, but it sometimes takes a little bit of time, a little bit of processing. But you're being asked to, you know, really complete these lessons of worth and value and make a choice here which is truly aligned with that. That's what I strongly feel. In your outcome, we have the Eight of Wands. This is, I feel, very much an invitation to make some kind of decision, some kind of move here. It's about taking action. You know, the Eight of Wands is a very fast-moving energy, very unhindered energy, and often represents communication. Rapid, you know, texting, messages, you know, very, very fast moving energies. So, you know, once you've taken a little bit of time out here and, you know, whatever choice you make here, it feels from this point onwards, you know, things are going to be, you know, very fast moving. And actually, you know, like in terms of a partner, you do want someone who can communicate rather than someone who kind of checks out every time there's an issue that comes up. So Libra, I'm going to leave that there. Take your time and take some time out, but, you know, really tune into your heart here and do that in a very, very honest, open way. But I'm going to leave that there. If this reading resonated, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, no matter what comes through in a reading, moving forwards, always trust what feels right for you. So thanks so much for being here, and I wish you a great month ahead.